hotel room. I got here like last night, and at least I know that I need to go downstairs and purchase their premium internet for $10 a day, so that I could, or at least for today, so that I could hop on business calls or conference calls uh, for work today. So, how's everything with you?
Uh, well, kind of crappy, I guess. I've been sick all week, but
Uh-oh.
um, had my
After your marathon?
yeah, it was a 26K, so it's 16 miles, so it's a bit short, but longer than a half. But I did like a minute slower than I did last year, which sucked. After I think I sent you that message, I like literally hit the wall and it just sucked the rest of the time. I was otherwise like first half of it, the first 8 miles or so, I was making good pace for me, and then just I don't know what happened, just boom.
What did you have for breakfast?
What I always have, which is like a piece of toast with peanut butter on it, um, and
Do
then I
you think that
usually will
was?
have. Oh, go ahead.
But you've had that for normal marathons, and you haven't had issues with the
Well,
wall.
yeah, I mean, I hit the wall a little bit, but I for half marathon, I don't know that I've hit the wall, so I don't know. Yeah, it was just I don't think I've been training very hard, is what it is. So, um,
Oh,
yeah, so it was
you
just
sound
kind of a
disappointed.
well, I'm also haven't been feeling good since then. So, although I don't know, I'm wondering if so. I think running that distance is supposed to kind of mess with your immune system, and then I had a wedding to go to right after, so I didn't get to any rest in right away, and so it was kind of just a really intense day on Saturday, and then um, started getting a sore throat sometime on Monday, and kind of just haven't really done much all week. So
You think you got COVID?
I don't know, maybe. My
You were
taste and
surrounded by a whole bunch of people.
yeah, my scent and my smell and everything or taste are they're all still there. So I mean,
Oh,
from my what my parents told me and everyone who's ever told me who's gotten it in earnest, it's they're like, yeah, I couldn't smell or taste anything, but I've never experienced that once. So I'm assuming that
yeah.
I'm one of those rare souls that hasn't caught it.
I got sick as a dog twice um within the past like I think year. The the first time, I mean, I think I told you, like I tested negative for it.
Hmm.
And the second time I didn't bother testing. I was like, forget it. What difference does it make? All it's going to do is make my life harder if I get show up on the government's radar.
Yeah,
So,
that was what I think I've because I think I got sick last year and or in the winter, and somebody was like, well, "Why don't you get tested?" And I go, "Well, for for one, um, like I don't think well for one I don't think it's it because I haven't lost my sense and like smell, taste, whatever. But two, like what is it gonna do? It's like going to the doctor for the flu. They're not gonna like do anything for you. I don't know. Maybe now, maybe they've got some like therapeutics or whatever, but I don't know. Do they? I don't know if they hand out therapeutics.
mm, maybe it's similar to like a STD. Maybe they offer you a therapist or a counselor. That I didn't mean for that to be a joke,
Yeah,
but
or a yeah, or they well, I mean, they'll give you antibiotics. I got prescribed antibiotics once, and I'm like, no, I didn't. I don't have an STD. There's absolutely no way whatsoever. And the doctor just kind of looks at me like, okay, sure, yeah, you
yeah,
know, like like you could tell me you're like you're not gonna get in trouble with your doctor. It's like No, seriously, there's no freaking way. I didn't even go pick up the antibiotics because I'm like, this is ridiculous. It's not that. Like, it was because of it, I don't know. I just had some trauma or something. I don't know. It was weird.
Mm.
But anyhow, yeah. So I don't know. And then it's just been, when I haven't been sick, it's been just kind of like, I don't know. Work is still just uninspiring.
Yeah, I I, every weekend and every Monday, I wonder what's the likelihood of me being laid off so I could get back to beach delivery. um, I gotta see a therapist because it's bothering me, man. I really want to get this thing done. I'm gonna feel like a failure if I don't deliver this. I put like 3 years of my life on this project that for me is the biggest project I've worked on, in which I was able to learn technologies or skills that mainstream people in general don't have, and I feel like I didn't deliver, and it's bothering me, man. And the question is, like, the feedback I get is, "Oh, Scott, you're in a good place. Look how much money you're making compared to everybody else, and look at the amount of effort that you're being asked. Like, do you really want to give that up? If you don't have to, especially in this economic climate." And like, I get it, right? I think I'm thankful to show gratitude, but I don't know. The immature part of me is no different from like when I was in my early 20s. Like, uh, I'm thankful, I have gratitude, but I'm not fulfilled. And the older I get, the the more fear that I have that I'm going to leave this world with regret if I have time to think about it before I die, right? Like,
Yeah.
when I get diagnosed or when I'm told like whatever news that, hey, this is, you have like whatever number of months or years left, and I'm thinking about, all my experiences. Yeah, like, who cares about work? But this is more than work. This is something that I wanted to like introduce to the world and leave my mark, because I do take business personal when it's something that I'm driving. And so I don't know. Like, I take it really personal and it's bothering me.
No, I get it. It's Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the boat that, well, not necessarily the boat I've been in. I don't have the beach delivery, but that feeling of just like yes, you're making decent money, and yes, you're like it's a pretty, it's not a like a hard job, right? But there's something to be said about finding fulfillment in what you do and realizing that like you don't just want to go through the motions and then just die. Like what is there left after you reach like a certain age? It's like you've done everything that the world's asked of you, and it's like what's like, is it literally just going to be this for the next like 30 years unless I catch something and die sooner? Like, I don't know.
Oh
Yeah.
no. I feel like a lot of people that hit middle age or people that are like early seniors, I feel like their focus in life is then to increase like system maintenance of their body to slow down their body from falling apart. Like, healthcare starts becoming more prioritized. People just try to, I think in general, people try to manage not having a dreadful end to their life, right? Who wants to spend the next 5 or 10 years having some chronic illness or pain? Like, I feel like people probably once they get to a certain age, it becomes a huge priority. Like when you're a teenager or when you're like relatively young, you're invincible. You do whatever. I swear to God, as soon as I turned 40, man, my body just started falling apart. So it's something I'm just very conscientious about now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean there is some, turn towards that, but it's I don't know. This is, I think, a just a part of getting old, I guess, because humans weren't like, I guess historically we never lived much beyond our 30s, right?
yeah, you're
We
talking about
like,
like Middle Ages, and you look at the obituaries, and they were like 35, 40 years old. They died from
yeah,
old age.
it's like you're born, you like you have one great adventure, maybe you have kids, and then you die, and that's kind of it. But now it's like people are living like in their 80s. It's like, oh, you reached 40 and now you've done everything that society kind of like has grown up needing, and now what do you do? Like, so I don't know. There's like Jungian philosophy, I think, or psychology. Jungian psychology talks about the middle passage and the idea that you have to switch from what is the world asking you to do to what are you asking you to do, or what do I need to do, and like you refocus yourself towards like what your inner self is trying to make you become. And that might be the tension that you feel like with the whole speech delivery thing is, you know, that's the that's what your inner self wants, is to do that and accomplish it. But there's all still this external like expectations and needs that keep you from it. So
What is it called? Manslow. What's that?
hierarchy of needs.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it before. I wonder which parts get expedited. I wonder if there's stages. Well, I guess like if it's a hierarchy, I guess it is a stage, right? Or a list of stages, a series of stages for the hierarchy of needs. But
Yeah, I mean, yeah, yeah, you kind of go up it, and maybe that's what it is that like as you get older, you've reached that like top tier, the second to top tier, and then you need to get to that top tier, which is where you've like self actualization as being the best you or whatever. But I don't know. I don't know. My head's thinking back around to like, I don't know. Could I just leave software one day, and how would I even do that, and like what do I switch to? And it's this golden handcuff, man. Why did we pick such a lucrative career?
honestly, like I, I can't imagine. Besides, like if I had different parents and maybe being a professional athlete because I was raised in a cult and they didn't want me playing sports or whatever. Um, I can't think of any other job that I would be upper middle class. Like I honestly can't conceive of any other profession where I think I would excel. Um, I can read books, right? But I can't memorize them. I'm not like book smart when it comes to like going to universities and taking whatever tests to get into college. Like that's not me. I tried the trades or construction. That didn't work out. I got fired from that. Like I don't know what else I could be proficient in or competent in or really excel in outside of using my imagination and translating my thoughts into the editor. I don't know. I think I got really lucky. Um, just happening to say, "Oh, man, a software engineer makes $60,000." As I would look at, the Yahoo search results in 1999 or 2000, when I felt like I had to go to college or something, or university or community college to try to at least do something with myself instead of working night shift at a factory. And it worked out, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of fell into it. It was actually a very odd time to get into software engineering too, because
What post
yeah,
uh
the
the tech, what do you call it, the tech bubble?
tech
What do you
bubble,
call it? What was it called for programmers where they had the dot
dot
com burst?
com bubble. Yeah, that's
Okay.
right. Because it was, well, and then it was the idea that all of the jobs were going to India and stuff like that. So it was like that, what, 2005 or three, maybe, to like 20, maybe like 2012 is where it started to pick up, and people like it really switched up. But there weren't like a ton of CS graduates during that period, and um, like that's why like the most of I think that's why most of the people have, like, what do they say, like less than 5 years of experience or whatever, probably like 7 or 8 now. But um, yeah, it was a weird time to get into software. Like, I don't know what you'd call it. It's like we're probably like the Gen X. If you like put software developers into generations, like we're probably like the Gen X. There's the boomers that were in before the dot com bubble burst, and then there were like this like Gen X period between when the dot com bubble burst and basically after the recovery of 2008, where like nobody was really entering in it. But I don't know. It's kind of a weird idea, but I wonder if there are like differing, like if you take that kind of, if you did like a generational analysis of, in terms of like major events in software and career patterns and stuff like that, and look at like what attitudes people have that started in the like late 2000s versus like
Well,
pre 2000 or post
let's try.
2012 maybe.
Let's try. So I don't know where to start. I guess I would start in I believe it was the 60s.
Oh,
And
the greatest generation. No,
well,
of software and just
well, what,
kidding. Yeah, I'm
what,
just, yeah.
what decade was Dijkstra?
Dykstra. Oh man, I don't know. Um, Dykstra was World War. Or wait a minute, Dykstra. Okay, sorry, I'm mistaking people here.
And I don't know the first name. Or probably before Dijkstra was Turing, Alan Turing. It was
Yeah,
Alan Turing.
Turing was the one I was thinking of, which he was World War II
So, because
era
yeah,
because he did the defeated the Nazi.
you know how he died, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. There's a movie about
Uh,
him. You should watch it if you haven't. It's kind of
yeah,
interesting.
I think I shared with you. Legend has it that's where Apple conceived their logo. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
Dykstra was
yeah,
well,
he
he
died in
was
1954.
yeah, well, that was Turing. Dykstra,
Oh,
I
yeah,
don't know
yeah,
if,
yeah.
yeah, Dykstra died in 2002, but he was born in 1930. But he looks like he was active kind of as in computer science from like looks like 72 is when he won his award. But
All right, so
yeah, I don't.
let me try. So World War II, I think people can make a fair argument of computer programming. And there's a famous lady in the Navy that I thought coined the term debugger, right? And so let's start with World War II, or probably the mid 40s, and then you go up to the probably the 60s, where I believe Silicon Valley was introduced as a startup um, incubator town, for lack of a better term, because you had people from universities that were in pursuit of creating a silicone chip instead of relying on vacuum tubes. I believe that's accurate, right? So that was in the 50s, I believe, and that was attracting uh, young, sharp university minds with PhDs. And then after the 60s, you had 70s with mainframes, um, in which I would believe that Fortran was around in the 70s. I'm not sure when COBOL was introduced, but you had the mainframes, in which that was leveraged by your NASA and I assume military institutions. And then and with all this, you also had NATO, the NATO conference for software engineering, in which NATO had coined the term software engineering because people were asking what are they, and there were two different perspectives. There were people that were at your defense institutions or defense organizations, um, that believed that they were doing more than just programming and that they needed to achieve certain like industry quality. But then you had other people that just believed that they just program things without really engineering anything, without really being considered an engineer. And I think like that NATO conference was the start of trying to get programmers to have an engineering discipline. That was my understanding. So that was like ah, I thought in the early 70s. I could be wrong. Late 60s, early 70s. And then I think that goes all the way up to the 80s. I whenever you're they introduced the internet in what the late 80s.
Yeah, what is it, the DARPANET or whatever. Yeah, there's actually a pretty decent show on AMC. It's a drama, but they kind of go through these periods, not as far back as mainframes and stuff like that,
Uh,
but they do try to cover like some of the major like ages in tech from like the 80s to the mid 90s or whatever.
all right, so
But
you're late. I think you're late 80s or mid 80s. I think it was mid 80s. You you had you had the internet introduced by was it introduced by the military or
yeah, I
was
think
it
it was
a
a
military program that required universities to come up with something or
I
what
think it
was it?
was a mix of, oh gosh, man, I can't remember my history on this, but it was, I believe it was a combination of like the military plus and universities. Because the DARPANET, I believe, was a
It's 1983.
net was a or ARPANET or whatever it was. I believe that was a, gosh, was it a military thing? Yeah, it was a defense thing.
Yeah, I thought they kind of like autonomous driving. I think
Yeah.
the Fed or the military had set up a program designated to communicate very quickly across vast distances between universities or institutions. All right, so that was the early 80s was the introduction to the internet. In the 90s is when you had your search engines, Yahoo,
Yeah.
probably Dogpile.
Talk, yeah, Metacrawler and all those things. It was a big
Um,
race.
and then
Um,
in the late 90s, you had your peer-to-peer networks for file sharing. What was it? What's it called? Bear Share? Something Bear. I mean, you had a number of
well, there's Napster, and there was, I used LimeWire, I think,
yeah,
Kazaa,
Napster,
Kaboom, or whatever.
LimeWire. Okay,
There's still like some of those shareware type or systems out there, but um,
but Napster was in the late
torrenting,
90s, or
yeah,
was it in the early 2000s?
it was the late '90s, I believe.
Okay, so you
Yeah,
had Napster. Okay, and so that's when you started having like I would argue web applic social what no, what would it be? 'Cause they didn't have
no,
what
it
would you
wasn't
call that?
until
Yeah,
I was gonna say, I'm not sure what that would be, but social networks didn't come out until like 2000 and
Well,
well, MySpace was there, but
you had
around
you,
2006 time
yeah,
frame.
yeah,
But
but you had social file sharing. I'm not sure
yeah,
of a better term in the late '90s,
yeah,
and then
over your 56K modem. What a pain. Remember those days?
well, oh yeah, yeah, and then you also had video games. And when you brought up modem,
Yeah.
that's what I remember is trying to play 2K. I forget. I think it was like NFL 2K on my Dreamcast or something.
Hmm.
And like anytime my phone rang on my landline, my game would pause for like 2 minutes. And
Oh yeah.
I used to hate because I had a family of like well my father had died, so I went from five to four. I had a family of four, and my phone would just ring like every 5 minutes, and it was annoying because I'm trying to conduct a online video game with like the Minnesota Vikings with Moss,
Yeah,
and
Randy Moss. Yep.
yeah, and I used to be really good, and it used to always disrupt. Or people would get ready to lose their game, and they would disconnect, and you wouldn't get that win, and it would affect your ranking. So yeah, that was a dial up. So that was the late '90s, I believe. Um, and I think that's when people. I think I think that's when maybe people, some a very small subset of people claimed that they love video games, so they wanted to be a video game developer or video game programmers. I think that was maybe I think in the late '90s, an opportunity for people to focus on game development. I could be wrong. You would know this better than I would. Um,
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
and then I think Facebook. I think Facebook was introduced in like 2003 or 2004. Let me check. My
It's,
memory is pretty good though.
I
Let
think
me
it was
see.
2003, but it didn't really become because you had to have an EDU address to join it. So it didn't like it was gaining popularity in colleges, but it wasn't until gosh, when was it? It wasn't until like maybe 2006 or something like that.
Oh, but before Facebook
MySpace, man.
was no before social media there was and I never got on board because I never really understood it. But what was the instant messaging?
Oh yeah,
What?
ICQ
Yeah, I never really
and
understood.
MSN Messenger and Yahoo Chats and all of those.
Well, not even that. What were techies using? Was it ICQ? I feel like that wasn't it. There was something that I feel like there was some type of forum messenger
Like
that
IRC.
IRC, which I
Yeah,
never got into. I never really understood. What year was that?
IRC. Well, IRC is still going, but I don't know that it ever became like major popular. But yeah, I don't know. I guess technically you could say now because Slack is basically an IRC. But
Was it late '90s?
yeah, yeah, probably.
All right, and then also in the late '90s, your American Online, in which anytime you would try to cancel, they will give you like a free like I don't know month or two every single time, and you would always talk to Bob or Becky from India. Um, and then your Facebook, I think it was like 2003. No. Before your Facebook, like you said, was MySpace in the early 2000s, and then Facebook, and then 2008. God damn, man, destroyed the fabric of young society. Destroyed it. Outside of the atomic bomb, I think that was the second most influential catalyst that altered the future of humanity.
Well, in our so our generation, because I assume because you're what like 40 some now,
Yeah,
right?
41. Yeah.
41. So you're a little bit older than I am, but so you're at the low end of Gen X, and I'm at the high end of millennial. Um,
I'm considered I'm still considered a millennial. I think we researched this together. Millennials, I thought
If you're
Uh,
41, you'd be what, born in 81?
it was 81. I thought it was the
Yeah,
termination.
80. So I think like 80. Yeah, yeah. So you could be kind of like in that mid range, whatever. But um, so 9/11 was probably because, so if you were born in 81, um, 9/11 was kind of like in your start of your college
Yep, I
years
was in
then.
community college
Yeah,
when it happened.
I remember. I think I was in 10th grade. And that
You're
was like,
deviating. You're deviating.
yeah.
We have to go back to the.
I would
All
say
right.
if you're talking about big world events, 9/11 was a big event, but the 2008 crash in terms of software development, um, I don't know that it
No,
really.
it wasn't 2008 crash. No, I was talking about 2008 was when the iPhone was introduced.
Oh, okay. I was thinking I only think of the crash,
No, no,
the
no. When I say the
App
downfall of the
Store and all
fabric
that.
of humanity,
Ah,
it was the smartphone. It
gotcha.
it literally changed the course of what humans valued and how they spent their time.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough.
So that was 2008, and then post 2008,
God, we're in 2022
I
already. We have a whole
I, I,
decade.
I want to say somewhere. I'm not sure which year after 2008. I like to say like maybe 5 years ago. Well, I can't do the math. Is that 2017? I can't do the math.
Hmm.
There was a surge of boot camps,
Yeah,
right?
the boot
That's
camps.
that's when people challenged the requirement of having a university degree. But we hold on. We missed the .NET bubble. I don't think I injected that.
The
We
dot
did
com
it.
bubble.
Yeah, the .com bubble. We did inject Y2K,
Yeah,
right? Um,
Y2K. Oh man.
uh,
Yeah, Y2K was kind of like so I would have gone much simpler here and have been like, okay, there's a generation of engineers that were like pre-modern computing, right? And then there was basically like mainframe era, and then there was like um, maybe like a mainframe and personal computing, pre-internet or pre-major internet, and then there was like the .com era, and which is we I think got on the tail end of what I would say is the like fallout of that before, like you said, then there was the app probably era coming through for another 10 years or so, and then there's like, and now it's just like, I don't know what you'd call it, like a web
well,
everywhere.
I remember like 2013, your Microsoft was pushing really hard for mobile apps, but they were pushing really hard for game development. So when the iPhone came out in 2008, I would argue that 5 years later, Microsoft was trying to figure out where they fit into that model, and that's when at MS Build, like I swear, like every other talk was on game development. Like
Yeah,
they were pushing that so hard. Um, so you had a
I think
surge
that was
in
because, I mean, I think that was because Windows was the
store
gaming
app.
platform, and they were really worried about Linux taking that away from them. Because like a lot of kept Windows going a lot was the fact that they had all the games. But
Mm,
um, I don't know. Actually, I don't know that Microsoft gets enough credit for what they did with XNA and basically opening up
to C#.
game development to the masses. Yeah, like that was a really big deal. Like that was the first time that you, as like a just a Joe Schmo off the street, could get your game on a console. And um, like that whole like generation of, I think, like there was a huge amount of that turned into like really big indie games that we have today that are really really good, and they probably don't get enough credit for what they did.
Mm. Yeah, I don't think it's in Visual Studio anymore as a template, as a project template.
No, you can still get mono game, and people still write. I still write in mono game when I do stuff, but it's yeah, it was
Oh, we left out a huge uh chapter within the timeline. I would argue that it was around I would argue it was around the same time as the Great Recession where it started getting visibility. Huge. Can you guess what I'm about to say?
oh gosh.
In regards to software development,
I have
how software is built, huge,
man, I don't know.
agile.
Cloud. Oh, agile. Yeah, I was gonna say cloud computing too has changed a lot. Um, I
Yeah.
mean,
So your agile, I remember specifically in 2010, which I think was the tail end of the Great Recession. That
mm,
when I was in Cleveland, Rockwell Automation was transitioning.
yeah,
I feel like
I'm so
transgender or something.
yeah.
Transitioning.
I'm so sick of Scrum though. I'm so sick of Agile. Like talk of Agile. Like it was great back when like people were doing different things, and like you just had the philosophy of it, and you're like, we should do things like this, and there's ways you can get started, and Scrum is one way to get started, and like having you know all that. Now it's just like to me, there's so much waste in like your like process oriented um, agile stuff. It's and nobody wants to try anything different, which is like the whole part of it. Like experimenting and actually coming. I've
Are you talking about
totally
Scrum or are you talking about Agile?
about Scrum and what Agile's become. Like
Okay.
I'm just
Yeah.
sorry I'm not trying to change the topic, I guess, but I'm just I've like totally checked out of retros. I think that there's absolutely no point to them because like anytime you suggest actually improving or changing or trying something, nobody wants to do it. Like no, that's too. It's like hey, PRs are a problem. Let's try not doing them.
I checked out of
Nope,
retros.
we can't do that. It's not like what if that one time. Yeah, but you're taking like the like one time this might happen, which could also get caught by all of the other gates and checks, and you're saying that that's the reason we should spend like waste all this time and effort to do these things. Like when 90% of the time, and it could be at your discretion. Like if you want a PR because you feel like it's this complicated, or you don't know the area enough, or you want value somebody's opinion and feedback, or you're new, like yeah, but it should be at your discretion. That's all I'm saying.
Uh,
Rather than be a requirement of it. And it's like nobody wants to even give that line of thinking, like because it's so cargo cult stuff. It's just uh
I don't know why people don't want to continuously improve.
yeah, that's the thing is that
They don't want to acknowledge that they can continuously improve what they're doing. It's like such an ego thing. Look, I'm not going to deviate for too long, but like I was like, hey, there's growth opportunities for how we're delivering value. There's opportunities for us to increase our throughput. I understand that development teams are having retrospectives, but you know what? Um, I'm trying to I'm trying to teach the business that continuous improvement or having a coming to Jesus talk about it, aka retrospectives, that's not just for developers. That's for everybody involved in this project, including business leaders. And so, like, if they're not going to do it themselves, when I repeatedly ask them, maybe I should lead by example and have retrospectives for architects. Man, you know what I? So I started kicking off those sessions. They just turned into design meetings, and
yeah.
like I was so disappointed. I'm like, it. people aren't interested in continuously improving.
Yeah, they're not.
They're
It's
interested in figuring out how to address the fires more than they're interested in how do those fires get started in the first place. This industry doesn't have engineers. It just has people with notepads and pencils and checkboxes. That's
yeah,
all it is, and it's so frustrating.
or it's bike shedding, like, right? So it's you want to continuously improve within the tiny little constraints that you feel like you can do things in. So like anybody with big ideas who's like, hey, let's try this. Let's switch to Kanban. Let's because that might be more conducive to this thing, or let's run duo track of this, or let's not do PRs, or let's do PRs, or let's
And you
try
know what shuts
testing
that down?
differently, or let's have the developers do the QA work here, or
And
blah blah.
you know who shuts that down?
Yeah.
Who? Who?
Not me. It's yeah.
Enterprise standards and practices,
Yep. Yeah.
a tribunal of people that are dictating how the work gets done, but they're not held accountable for the success or failure of that work that the
Yeah.
team is doing. The team owns the work, but you have a tribunal of enterprise practices and standards committee that are telling or dictating how it gets done with no accountability.
Yeah. And it's part of it is that like we want to be able to report up these metrics, and it's like, well, instead of dictating how these things should be done, let's just say, why don't you set out the requirements of what you want to be able to see from like have visibility into from your organizations, and we'll take that as a constraint. Sure, but like the actual process shouldn't be a constraint. Like there's no reason if a team wants to have 1 week sprints or 4 week sprints, for instance, because they feel like the way that their work is, they shouldn't be able to do that because the organization is on 2 week sprint cycles. It's, well, who cares what the organization is? You're a self-organizing team. It's like I don't know. I could go on for hours about this, but I've just like completely checked out of like like believing that there's any actual buddy out there who ever actually wants to try to like try things and try to get better. Like for real, not just within like tiny little like oh, let's we should flag this Jira ticket as this now instead of this. It's like, no, that's not helping anything.
Yeah,
It,
it's interesting to continuously improve. Sometimes means that you have to use a scientific method, state your hypothesis, conduct your experiment, and then observe the results and make a decision on what to do next.
yeah,
And
that's
and
definitely how it
and
is. Yeah,
organizations are reluctant to experiment at all. At
yeah,
all.
yeah,
Like you could take low hanging fruit and experiment without it being a massive risk or disruption to the business. But yeah, it's sad. We have to get back to the timeline. I feel like we're like 80% done, right? So agile, I would argue gained visibility in 2010. I would argue that, and then your boot camps I think was like around 2017, maybe 2016, maybe. Um, did I miss anything? Oh, your cloud computing. It gained visibility. I would argue in 2012. It was on the radar, but it didn't become mainstream. I would argue until like probably like the last 24 months. What what do you think?
do you say for cloud computing
Mainstream.
or that it's
Yes.
become mainstream?
Yes.
No, cloud computing's been probably for mainstream for maybe the last 6 years or so. Like I remember doing cloud computing or starting to do some cloud computing like 2004 or 2014 rather. So um,
Did you see it on job descriptions for a back end developer? that thou shalt know AWS or thou shalt
Yeah,
know
good point.
was it ubiquitous on job descriptions?
Good point. Yeah, no, it wasn't. So
I like using the word ubiquitous. It makes me sound smart.
yeah, ubiquitous. So now it's like, you know what, the next like level here is people that are going to be doing everything with. I bet you it'll be AI. Um, Obviously, blockchain stuff is still kind of out there. Um, and then we've got kind of I think low code is and no code is starting to pick up steam
Never
more
heard of
than
it.
like just low code and no code solutions instead of
Never
like
heard that term.
yeah. You probably hear it all the time because that's what everybody like dreams of, not having to pay developers. Um, well, now anyways, but I feel like it's starting to get like some traction. So I don't know, maybe we'll all code ourselves out of a job.
I mean, what does that mean? Relying on workflow editors and or what's the other one? Like, is it like Azure? What's that Azure product? Where you basically wire in different um systems. It's grid, something grid.
Yeah. Or if you get into like Zapier, like automation, or if this and that stuff. But I think low code also and no code almost like it also includes just being able to build out custom forms and custom apps without really writing a bunch of code. Which all you need for a lot of CRUD apps is to just do that. If you're just trying to build a database, you don't really need systems developers. But um,
Would
yeah, I don't know.
WordPress be an example of low code?
No, it's a content management system.
Oh,
So
Azure Logic Apps is a cloud platform where you can create and run automated workflows with little to no code. Would that be an
yeah,
example?
yeah, that'd
Okay.
be it.
Yeah, I couldn't
Um,
remember the name, but
a lot of the Silicon Valley startups are starting to go that route where they're instead of doing like hiring developers to build it, they'll just build it using these kind of like because they don't need to be like they don't need to think about scale right away. So it's much easier to prototype. But man, there's just like some patterns within computing are so ubiquitous that it's probably pretty easy to like not have to write certain things over and over again.
speaking of patterns, we left out design patterns. I would argue gained visibility in maybe 2008, maybe the Gang of Four design patterns book, the Heads Up design patterns book,
Yeah,
followed shortly after Invisibility, and then functional programming, I believe, gained visibility. I would argue probably within the last 24 months again.
yeah. Well, when did WhatsApp come out?
What's that been out? It's been out for a while.
Because WhatsApp,
It looks or that leaves
Erlang,
Erlang,
yeah,
right?
yeah. So that's been since 2009. I feel like that was one of the first places where I started to really get um, hear about functional programming was that application. But that, I mean, it didn't. It was released in 2009, but it when did it become popular? Maybe like
Oh no,
I don't know.
like once I gained proficiency in F sharp, that's when I felt like that's that's where like I my confidence went up and I felt like a sex symbol. Like I felt so elite that I could do something that mainstream people couldn't understand.
Yeah.
And I still kind of enforce that at different development shops I work at.
What do I need to do to get an F sharp job? What should I do? Should I go learn it and try to find an F sharp job?
Usually you have to learn the skill in order to get hired. Yes. I don't.
Hey, I want to learn F sharp. Hire me. I'll do it.
I
Who's
mean,
even
there
hiring for F sharp nowadays? Like
the majority of jobs are in Europe
fintech? Oh, in
because
Europe?
they're ahead of us. They're more progressive, should I say, than the United States when it comes to technologies and mature organizations using it. But here, I mean, there's shops that are using it, but I would argue still a fraction. So your West Coast, like your Silicon Valley spots, they they may use F sharp for I don't know what you call it. What's that industry called? Bio what?
Biotech or what?
I guess so. Where like they write programs for genomes
Yeah.
and
Okay. Yeah. Biotech probably.
so biotech,
FinTech I
it,
think uses it a bit too.
yeah, fintech on Wall Street in Wall Street. Those,
Didn't Wave? No, not
but it's really
Wayfair.
applicable for. I would argue
Yeah.
it's just as applicable as object-oriented programming. It's just the stereotype is complicated disciplines in STEM.
Yeah, because you need to be more precise, and you need like a higher caliber of developer probably to do it. Um,
But
yeah, yeah. You
yeah,
search Indeed for F sharp, you don't get a whole lot. There is one
uh,
binary defense,
yeah, that's in Ohio. Um,
senior software engineer, F sharp, C sharp, remote binary defense.
there's another like if you Google F sharp jobs, like there's this Iris software that spams every single day. I
Oh
mean
yeah,
they they call they called
I see
me
it.
they called me a month ago and I told them my hourly rate and then I never heard back from them again.
Yeah, they're like the top three jobs just if you're looking at Google and
Yeah.
searching. Oh God, yeah,
Um,
you're right. Well, okay, so they do this. They do exactly what um, other people do. So what they do is they to fit into like to come up with search results because the job's probably remote. So to come up with the actual like search results, what they do is they actually create a job listing in every major city in the United States. And so that if you're searching for jobs in Miami, you'll find one for an Iris software, whatever. That doesn't mean the job is in Miami. It's just that's that's how they like that's how they game the
system
systems. Yeah,
or
because I've
algorithm.
seen this with other organizations too. Like on LinkedIn, when I was back searching for a job a couple of years ago, I was searching and literally I'd get a page of just the same job in every single like major city. And it's like this isn't helping me because I have to go to like the next page and the next page to get beyond just this one. So it's like, can I hide this? No, I can't hide this. So yeah, it's pretty lame. But
Yeah. Um, I would argue I would argue you probably like most people that I don't even know how to frame it. You probably have to have a passion project, do it in F sharp, and then answer some Stack Overflow questions or maintain a technical blog, and then you start attracting people into your social circle that also are involved in F sharp, and then based on those relationships, jobs pop up.
yeah,
Has that worked in practice for me? Um, no. Well, yes. I mean, I get solicited on Stack Overflow jobs, and I get solicited more for Xamarin work because for whatever reason, my name in a lot of these job boards is associated to Xamarin mobile
yeah,
apps and not anything else. Not Azure, unfortunately. So
yeah. I could go back to like, trying to learn Elixir instead. Seems like there's a good number of jobs out there for Elixir. Interestingly enough, but
are you prepared to work in the European time zones, which
I don't
I
know.
assume is
They're
maybe
like
6 hours ahead?
these are jobs that are like these are all like they're. I see more local jobs under Elixir than I do in on F sharp searching for it.
Uh, you don't understand half the discussions at work. I don't understand. Like, why did you do this? I'm like, it's compilable pseudocode. It helps me wrap my mind around the boundaries of the domain and what the core interfaces are. You have to create several files for just one or for each interface. I could do it in just one file. So there's productivity gains, and I give the same dissertation, and they're like, "Yeah, but it's I don't understand it." Well, I'm like, there's a billion little boys and girls speaking Chinese. I don't understand that either. But they're children that are speaking it, even though I'm not.
Is this
Uh,
C sharp you're writing, or is it F sharp?
well, they're complaining about F sharp,
Okay.
in which like I'll when going through the analysis and design stage of of a product or solution that I'm going to build or that I'm required to build, I pretty much sketch out what the core operations are and what are the boundaries of or domains of those operations, and it compiles, and I know what the in order for those operations to succeed, I know what the parameters need to be based on me just sketching out the function types that are the operations. And then once all that compiles, then I'll attempt to write some unit tests, and then that causes me to iterate on my business equations. They're basically business equations as operations. I iterate on that or refine it, and then that's when I start writing the implementation details and writing conditional logic that that implement those business equations. Like I learned a lot of stuff picking up that functional paradigm that a lot of people. I mean, it's like alien technology. The stuff that I've learned that most people like. I mean, it sounds like kind of elitist, but I'm dead
Yeah.
serious. Like I know a lot when it comes to designing uh, a set of services compared to my mainstream counterparts. And when I say design, I'm talking about taking into consideration like the maintainability of it, the cost of change. Like there's just a lot of revelations that I've had in my private practice of not just F sharp, but learning how to leverage F sharp by experimenting with it and seeing what I could do with it that hasn't really been published in books. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of it, and a lot of people don't get it because it's not in a book. So it's not in the Gang of Four.
Yeah. Yeah, that's problematic. Yeah, I know it's one of those things that yeah, I get into doing non what I'd say canonical C sharp or non idiomatic C sharp, and I get into the same kind of issues where it's like I think eventually I just give up because it's like people don't really get it.
Yeah, there.
Like yeah, I mean like I've run I was so there's like a newer software engineer on our team, and we had like a meeting to do a code review as a team, and it's like you could tell that the three people who are more senior, we all have differing opinions to achieve the same thing. And it's like, well, like so one of them's like, well, all don't use exceptions to do control flow, which is what I agree with. Um, but then it's like, but you can just return null here. And I go,
Oh.
and so like my level is like, I try to make things more, and not all the cases, but specifically within like the core domain boundary. I want that to be like as functional as possible. Around the edges, like I'm a lot more loose. Like I'll let exceptions fly. I'll handle nulls because that's the infrastructure where you're dealing with works that way. Like .NET core libraries throw exceptions, so you have to deal with them. But like, all right, on those boundaries, I'll deal with those things, nulls and exceptions. But when I get inside, try to model everything extremely like rigidly, you know, in terms of typing, and so I don't
And that's
use.
when you get pushed back, and that's when they say, "Oh, we have to meet this deadline. Can we just can we just schedule it as tech debt?" Is that what you get?
No, no. Well, it's just like, so I'll use like one of as a library in C sharp to do discriminated unions basically, as best as you can do. Obviously, they're not as good as what other languages provide, but it's a way to do it, right? And I'll try to make everything explicit. And I've created types too. I've had some luck where I've created like, oh, on the constructor, I have to get a verified, this and a verified that, and then those types are only created by calling this verify function on this that then does the thing. So there's absolutely no way to construct this thing
Good stuff.
unless you've done what you need to do. So it's like the compiler enforces everything. And like ideally I'd like to write all of my code that way, but it's like it's so foreign, I think, to a lot of people. And then another senior's like, yeah, no, go ahead and throw exceptions um to for these kinds of things, and then have handlers. And that's like a simpler way to do it for this. But it's like, so we're just like three of us seniors are completely in disagreement. I'm just telling a junior, I'm like, listen, there's that you'll see, just based on the disagreement, this can go a lot of ways for people. Don't get too confused, but find your own voice, and observe what works well and what doesn't. And because it's hard for me to argue that. I just realized there's a lot of just opinions in this stuff. So I don't know, but
Do
yeah.
do you, do you think that do you feel like a redheaded stepchild based on the culture of your organization?
No, no, not really. I don't know if I've had enough chance to express those types of like ideas, because we just, like, I feel like we've been in such like a God, we've been in just such like a churn. Like it's not, like, we're not accomplishing anything in my opinion. Like, and it's that's what's weighing on me the most is I want to have successes and I want to improve the system and stuff like that. And I want to do that as part of like the team, not just on my own. Um, in terms of having like product support and design and working with them and QA and everything, building out new. And I thought we're getting close on something this year, so we started off designing like this whole new experience um, for like an kind of like inventory entry. And man, we were getting like designs in place, a lot of good discussions about what people might want to do and how to do it and things we need to test and how the system should be structured. And right when we were about to start developing on it, it's like, well, that's on pause because we've got this other stuff that's coming in that isn't going to actually get to give you any work. So you could still work on this, but we have to pull our other resources over here. It's like, fuck. So this entire year has been a wash for me for getting anything meaningful accomplished, and I can't see that changing. So it's just, I don't know, that drags on me. I don't care how much like, money we're making and how nice the culture is if we're not delivering value to the people we serve. It's just, in at least in the way that I feel like we should be delivering value. I don't know. And we deliver value. It's just, I don't know. Just, I'm not contributing to any of it. So it weighs on me. I don't know.
I know we're wrapping up, but based on that thought, do you think that there would be revelations you would make if you were leading that organization that maybe you don't factor in?
Would I would, well, I would totally restructure our the way that we structure teams, around like around specific like work streams and groups, because the way that they've structured it is more tiered, like front to back tiering rather than around business units. And I hate that. I absolutely just hate that structure. Like, hey, we support our sellers, but that means we support our sellers across every context. And it's like, no, I want to own a full context or a full set of contexts in holistically. And it's okay if we need to have like some components built by other teams because they're just so specialized, as like something we can reuse or whatever. Um, but for the most part, I would structure things around that. But that's not how we're structured, and so
Well,
getting
that
anything done is annoying.
is another way of saying that is structuring teams around a product.
Yeah, yeah, or like a product or like a work group, like their primary mission, right? Um, so an example would be like if you have a team that does catalog entry, um, and you have a catalog, and you've got a lot of consumers of that catalog, um, but they're not primarily maintaining it. Like the boundary for me is the catalog. You serve the catalog team. The product owner deals with the catalog team. You write the catalog. You write the UI to enter data into the catalog. You might reuse some like UI, platform or something for like you know um, authentication and stuff like that. Maybe that's stuff you're not responsible for, but you basically own the solution within that, and you provide APIs for every other team to interface with the catalog. Right? That's a team and a
Yeah.
product. It's like, and that's how you organize it. Um,
Uh,
yeah.
I forgot to tell you something. This is completely like unrelated.
Oh yeah.
Um, you remember you interviewed with Brian Noyes?
Yeah. I guess a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So I probably worked with Brian Noyes. Well, I've been on a conference called Brian Noyes. Uh, like at a job. I've worked at the same company with Brian Noyes, Michelle Bustamante, Jimmy Bogard. I don't know if these names sound familiar to
Yep.
you.
Yeah.
There's
I know.
another
I know
there's
Jimmy, and I know Brian.
you know Michelle Bustamante. She's the entity framework slash SQL Server guru. Um,
No.
yeah, she's pretty big. And there's one. I feel like there's one
Michelle.
more. Yeah, Michelle Bustamante.
No, I'm thinking of someone else. That's the EF person.
There's one other
Uh,
person that I'm missing. I can't think of right now. But those are like public, like personalities in the .NET space. Um, that I never ever thought that I would be in the same organization with them in regards to working.
mhm.
Um, Obviously, I'm like three orders of magnitude, four orders of magnitude lower than them in regards to status. But no, I just remember listening to your podcast with Brian Noyes.
Oh, I'm thinking of Julie Lerman. That's what I'm
Okay,
thinking of.
yeah, that sounds familiar. But
She's the person I think of when I think of like entity framework and, kind of the, I don't know, someone who's like high up in spokesperson or whatever.
yeah, well, I was just gonna say, I know we're wrapping up, but earlier you brought up like what's after software development, and
Yeah.
I'm curious how people become development coaches, not Scrum coaches. I'm just talking about development coaches, and like, have you considered that based on all the anti patterns that you've observed, and how do people get to that? Do they just maintain like a technical blog? I guess
Yeah.
would it be technical if it's more of a human factor?
Oh, so thought leaders. I think that people in that space, like they pull together the ability to communicate. Having like a successful track record with things, uh, being able to socialize at conferences and stuff and convey ideas, simple ideas or complex ideas simply. So it's, um, I don't know, like I don't know what the next generation of thought leaders how they'll kind of come about, but I mean obviously the current group was through blogging, through you know um, training materials, through conference speaking, all of that kind of stuff. Um, we're probably in like, but maybe the second generation of that now. I don't know. Uncle Bob's kind of fallen out of favor. He was like probably the first gen. of like
Yeah.
influencers. Um,
Well, I respect him for sticking to his guns and not basically flipping the script just because people don't agree with him.
yeah, no, I still like him. I don't know that. I don't understand. I don't understand everyone's like desire to just like
Cancel.
get rid of everyone like they
I
disagree with. I
feel
just
like
don't get
it's
it.
the like the Blair Witch
Yeah.
like of the new millennium. Like everybody everybody expects you to conform to what everybody wants or else they're offended. And it's just I swear that this just demonstrates a lack of parenting. Either a lack of parenting or soft parenting, people not getting whooped. Uh, because
Yeah.
because I mean like it wasn't my generation when I was a child, but I think like probably 15 years later, children were raised as everybody's a winner, and everybody gets a participation award, right? And it just started setting expectations where like everybody is equal, regardless of their output, regardless of the value that they actually produce. And I think it effed us up as a society. And now, like, if you have the audacity to not follow or not comply with mainstream progressive beliefs, then you're a problem. If you
Yeah.
if you verbalize, not even scream it, if you just verbalize that you disagree with the common beliefs of progressives, that all of a sudden, man, they're trying to get you off of Visa, Mastercard, freaking Google search results. Like they're trying to burn you at the stake. Freaking Copernicus. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I don't know what it where it came from, but it's certainly not like it used to be. Like I remember, having very like heated but valuable arguments with people where we actually discussed politics and stuff like that, and never would rarely would people change their mind, but occasionally, people would you'd come to some understanding. At least you'd understand like the person next to you isn't like spawn of the devil. I don't know. For some reason when Trump got elected, that changed like everything. It feels like it was like this burst, like something culminated, and suddenly like people like just suddenly became intolerable of each other. And I don't know why that is. Like I don't know. You gotta like walk on eggshells though. Like I won't tell the people that I work
Trump
with
did it.
that I voted for Trump. It's like
Yeah.
twice. I mean, it's like I'm not gonna tell them that, and I cannot argue that. There is no way for me to even remotely argue the fact that it wasn't as bad as you thought he was, and he, maybe there's some skill there that you're not seeing in the way that he did things. Um,
I have huge disagreements about a certain month out of the year that for fear of retaliation, I have to bite my lip every morning that I look at a news feed or I look at a LinkedIn post. Um, and I feel like logically I'm absolutely right and valid in why certain things are not appropriate for 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 work. But this month pretty much disregards that. And and if I'm vocal about it, I probably won't be employable unless I go to like I don't know, maybe some of the African countries or some of the Middle Eastern countries. And it's something that like no, this is not appropriate. It's not. But mainstream enforces that not only are we going to make this, are we going to push this in your face, but we're trying our best to make sure that It's not even healthy for me to go in about it because I'm going
Yeah.
to get myself in trouble.
Yeah, I wouldn't go too far into that. I see, like for me, I don't like, it doesn't bother me any of the stuff, like, because to be honest, a lot of it is like I'm not in any way like not accepting of people. Like somebody wants to, you know, be whoever they want to be. I don't care. Like, and if they want to celebrate it and the organization I work for want to celebrate it, I don't care.
So
Like, I just don't
so
care.
so I should plaster all over LinkedIn that I'm a swinger and I love going to orgies because that's my sexual practice. How is that appropriate?
uh, I'm not saying do that, and
But
I know
that's
what
what
you're
I feel.
getting at,
But that's
but
what I feel is being communicated, and I don't understand how that's a double standard.
yeah, yeah, I don't know. Maybe you should try. See what happens. Maybe you'll
Broadcast on
find some
LinkedIn that I'm
ally.
a
I'll be an
swinger.
ally. No. Yeah. Well, it is a different, it's potentially frowned upon uh, practice, and so maybe you will have a whole supportive group of people out there that want to connect with you, and you become like the swinger coder. You could change your name to Biz Swinger.
Yeah, but my point is, I don't think it's appropriate that I push my sexual behavior onto professional platforms. And it's amazing how these are values that even I maintain that that is frowned upon.
Yeah,
And it some people would say I'm pretty loose in what I say, but like I bite my bottom lip on things that to me are just very inappropriate. My sexual behavior, what I do in my bedroom, it's something that I don't think I should force everybody to celebrate how I choose to have sex. But yet, that's exactly what is broadcasted all over LinkedIn. That's exactly what a lot of these organizations they change their logos to rainbows and they say, Scott, it's not about sex, it's about inclusion. Okay, okay, if that's the argument, but that inclusion is about how people have sex, and I just don't. They could do whatever they want as long as it's not with animal or dogs or children, but force that to force your sexual preferences in everybody's face and then celebrate it, I think that's inappropriate. And if I go ahead and force how I was swinging at, in Atlanta or in Miami, and man, I had the night of my life, here's some photos, that would not be tolerated. So it's just, I don't understand how and why this has gone to the point that it's gone. And I'm done with my dissertation. I'm going to get banned from Twitter and every other platform because I have the audacity to disagree with something that I think isn't an accomplishment.
yeah. I don't know if I agree with you on it. I mean, hey, if
That's
they
a
want
safe
to
thing
do
to
their,
say.
well, that's the thing is like, well, yeah, I'm a totally racist Trump voter too. So, obviously I should be banned from everything. But I don't like. It's like I don't care about that at all. It's like, hey, people, they have their culture or the people that they group with, and they want and have the means to celebrate that. Well, go ahead, and if people want to put rainbows on things, I don't really, I just don't care. It's like, you do you, and I'll do me, and
If that's the case,
yeah,
I should be allowed to surf porn on a work machine and not have any issues, just like I would surf Al Jazeera or any type or CNN. It shouldn't be any difference.
yeah, okay,
But they will say that that's inappropriate. And I'm asking, how is it inappropriate if I surf porn on a work machine, but it's not inappropriate when you celebrate your sexual preferences on LinkedIn and change all the Fortune 500 logos to rainbows? Explain to me how there's a difference where one is inappropriate but the other one is not. I need help. I am slow. So you can tell,
Yeah.
like,
Okay.
you can tell
So
I'm passionate about it, but it's a double standard, and I'm calling a spade a spade. Like, it, it's a double standard.
yeah. So I guess trying to think of how you would even, you know,
I should be
so
allowed to surf porn on a work machine. Period.
so
If this is the new status quo, and we're going to celebrate how people choose to have sex because we're being inclusive, I should be allowed to surf porn on a work machine. Yes.
so is it? I'm trying to think of like a corollary, but is it like, should I be able to surf white supremacy stuff during Black History Month? Or I don't know. I'm not suggesting anything like that. I'm just trying to think of like a, because this kind of
Well,
like an
the term
interesting.
is called white pride, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But I would argue if it's about celebrating the accomplishments instead of the hatred, then absolutely.
yeah. Well, there, and what's kind of interesting about that is that there's almost no way to present that like celebrating the contributions of European peoples of European descent, like
It's called
without
90% of
sounding like,
inventions between
yeah,
white people and Asians. It's probably 90% of probably 99% of inventions are
I
from the
don't know.
white man and the Asian man.
But I mean, it's almost impossible to do that because you can't suggest like well, you can't really suggest a white Pride Month or like a White History Month.
Well, there's a straight pride month. That's in
Yeah, I
Boston.
didn't know that.
That's in Boston.
Yeah. Uh, well, and then you get into like the other dynamic, men versus, um, man, we don't even have time to go into it, but
Yeah,
there was this thing with, I don't know much about this Andrew Tate character, but apparently he's kind of like
I
this
do.
hot button person now. And there's this guy that I really liked, who founded G2 Esports in Europe, and he was caught partying with him, and basically he was forced to like sell all of his and get out completely from the organization that he founded because, or like the organization would be completely like, just because he was partying with the guy. So I'm like, I don't care. Like he makes great content, and he like obviously cares for his teams, and he like, I don't know. It's really weird.
It's a double standard that anybody that speaks up about it, they get in trouble.
Yeah, but now it's just, and it amplifies it because I'm like, well, what did Andrew Tate say that was so bad? And I haven't
I,
yet
I, I'll,
found
I'll,
his
I'll,
bad
I'll
stuff.
I'll tell you something that he said that bothered me. Right, I agree with probably 90% of what he says. And you know what? It's okay. I'm not required to agree with 100% of what everybody says. Right? I'm not. Right? There's parts that I can agree with, and there's other parts where like, no, I don't agree with that, or maybe I lack understanding in that area. Right? The part that kind of rubbed me the wrong way about Andrew Tate, but I still agree with probably 90% of everything else that he says, was when that and I might be butchering this, but he the way that my brain interpreted what he said, in which I don't have the literal quotes or the video in front of me, was he referred to people that people that consider like suicide or have suicidal thoughts as like cowards, right? And that's probably not what he said explicitly, but he
Hmm.
was he was he was basically saying that if 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 you're contemplating suicide, then you you're you're I can't think of any other word, but he was advocating that you're a coward, and like why would you even consider that, this, that, and the other, right?
Yeah, there's actually
Um,
a ton of people who hold that belief though. That's not unique to him. You'll see
right,
that, especially in religious communities. It's insanely,
r-
you know,
right, and so that part really rubbed me the wrong
pervasive.
way, because there's there's other factors to it that aren't necessarily logical, but more chemical, that can occur from substance abuse, other things in which substance abuse. It
Yeah,
doesn't even have to be abuse. It could be like medication that someone takes that alters the chemistry in the brain that creates involuntary thoughts, right?
Yeah.
So that part rubbed me the wrong way, and I really didn't like him for that. But 90% of everything else he says is extremely logical and it makes sense.
Yeah.
To me,
So
it
there's
does.
yeah, the one thing that I haven't looked into is what, because everyone says he's an alleged human trafficker. So that's the only part. Like, okay, yeah, if you're human trafficking, that's really bad.
Here's very
You probably
briefly,
should be associated
yeah,
with. I got
very
to run,
briefly.
but
Okay,
really
Dr.
briefly.
Omar Johnson is another example. He said that if you're not married to a black woman,
Oh yeah,
then oh, you're familiar with them, and
yeah. We
like
talked about him one day.
yeah, and I
So,
actually believe he's right, even though I'm in a relationship with the Asian. So, all right,
anyways, I got
we'll
to
catch
run.
up.
Yep.
See ya.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.